Previously, we studied the Cartesian system and we learned that any point in a plane is identified by two coordinates x and y. The Cartesian coordinate system requires a reference point called the origin and a reference direction called positive the x-axis. Now we are going to study the polar coordinate system. It also has a reference point and a reference direction. The reference point is called the pole and the reference direction called the polar axis, which is drawn in the same direction as the x-axis. In the polar coordinate system, the first coordinate is the distance from pole, which represents the radius or the radial. And the other coordinate is the central angle that the point makes with the polar axis, which is theta. So, a general polar form is r, theta, which looks like x, y in the Cartesian system. How do we plot point in the polar system? A point in the polar system is our distance away from pole on the terminal side of the central angle theta. For example, how do we plot the point 2 and pi/6? To plot this point, we determine the central angle whose measure is pi/6 and mark a point on the terminal side that is 2 units away from the pole. Let's have a look at another example. Plot the point 2 and -pi/6. We just move from the pole 2 steps along the terminal side of the angle -pi/6. Plot the point -2 and pi/6. To plot a point with a negative radial coordinate, we move 2 units in the opposite direction of the terminal side of the angle pi/6. Like this. Notice that each angle on the plane can have more than one polar coordinate ordered pair because the direction in which the point lies can have its angles expressed in more than one way. For example, here, the point -2 and pi/6 has the same location as the point +2 and 7 pi/6. In fact, since each angle can have an infinite number of coterminal angles, there are an infinite number of ways to express the polar coordinates for each point. This is unlike the Cartesian coordinate. To sum up, a point in the polar coordinate system has two coordinates. The first coordinate is the distance from the pole and the other coordinate is the central angle that the point makes with the polar axis theta. To graph a negative radial measure, we just go to the opposite direction of the terminal side of theta.